Yes, I appreciate to be here. It's a pleasure to travel, to come here to meet people talking about interesting things about the decision making. And we will talk about this in the talk. I propose Stéphane something exotic, so you will see. It will be a journey till I discover Bayesian Lab and Bayesian networks. As a statistician, it was something new, and I will try to show things that could be useful for people beginning with Bayesian networks and Bayesian Lab, and for others dealing with beliefs and with data. So this is my abstract, and well, my last sentence is a question: who am I really? We go through. So I worked in business intelligence before. I am a statistician, and I'm always be focused on decision making. And when I discovered Bayesian Lab, this is all the things I've done since that day. I came in the US for the first time in Nashville for the fourth seminar. Then I had the opportunity to be concerned by the strategic report for France on intelligence, on artificial intelligence. I wrote an article. I went to Google explaining how to live in counterfactual words in gaming. Well, I spoke for the army, for the military in the cyber security, about AI, etc., etc. And 3 years ago, I didn't imagine that I would do all these things. So let's begin. Who am I? Well, I love art. This is something, wow, you will say, it's strange. Well, it's a piece of self-imposed misery. We'll see later how it will talk to us. And I love poetry, and especially this sentence of this Charles Baudelaire dans les correspondances. So I wrote in French, but I traduce for you. Nature is a temple where living pillars sometimes let out confused words. Man passes through forest of symbols who observe it with familiar eyes. All a program. I was involved in business intelligence, so for IT people it is a left graph, and for users it's the right one. So it was how to make sure that the data input will good and in the better way output for the decision makers and the operational staff. And well, all begins at a conference panel at Rennes, a conference about decision making in a certainty context. And it's organized by military and all the staff of business to reciprocal sensitization of economic decision makers to defense, cyber defense, and military officials to the concerns of business leaders, including through conferences and panel discussions. So it was one of it. And it was a period I ended my job, and I was interested in AI and thinking how to deal with this new topic. And well, I was thinking about consulting with SAS, with Crystal Ball, with many things in order to present in the best way for decision makers how data could help them. Because in my job, well, my first job, I was no, my second one, I come as a responsible of statistics for Fujifilm, and I start to make reports. And one day I put a standard deviation on my report. And it was amazing. Oh no, not standard, we want differences. Okay. And so the statistics for some people is like in gaming, you know, you have scores, you have means, you have max, you have min, but nothing else. And I really want to, and it was difficult to explain a regression to someone who don't know about mathematics of CPR or things like that. Not at Fujifilm, but when you deal with people and you want to explain them, you have methods that could help them. Okay, you show me the figures, but I want to understand what is behind. And if you show them a program, a model, and something else, well, they feel stupid and they don't want to go this way. And it's all about the change in organizations. It's all about the change of our mind, of our relation to the world we deal with. And, well, they spoke, but nothing about data. Decision-making in uncertainty context. Strange. Well, a man just behind me asked a question at the end. Well, you didn't speak about data. Well, it's very interesting for business. It's very interesting for military. When you have to make a decision, it's not only meetings and thinking and things like that. And the answer was, if data analysis had worked, there would not have been the 9/11 event. Wow. So 9/11 event is the end of data analysis. Well, I was astonished, like Bush hearing this news. So at the end, I went to this guy and I started to talk to him, and it was Lionel who spoke to me about Bayesian networks. He told me, you are a statistician. I'm sure it will convince you. And that's it. Today, the last 2 years, I have made the count. I had 40 meetings or conferences or panel discussions around AI and Bayesian networks to all kinds of people. And they all live, for them, AI is this. It is something magic. It is machines who will govern the world. And news are going this way. Machines are more and more performant. And there is also strange things. Well, the machines are going more and more performant, but more and more dangerous also. So what can we do against this? It's a fear, it's a world of fear. IT is magic, and artificial intelligence is something out of IT and very, very, very magic for them. And so you have to return to the basics and to try to understand how could you talk about Bayesian networks, about AI, to people for whom AI is a problem, for people who don't understand IT. And so the main question is, what is artificial intelligence? So I ask you the question I start with. You have 3 photos. For you, what best represents artificial intelligence? So we will vote. For the first one, smartphone. Nobody. 1, okay. For the second one, pilot cabin. Okay. And for the third one, Sophia, the first citizen of Saudi Arabia, yeah. And the others? No answer. Well, let's go on. Sophia. Well, Sophia reflects the fantasies of artificial intelligence till international instances. She was asked, in many parts of the world, people don't have the internet or electricity. What can we do at the UN to help them? You can see this on the Facebook file. Well, the answer is very, very apocalyptic, but it's the vision of artificial intelligence that are in our mind, but this is not real artificial intelligence. It's a part of artificial intelligence, but artificial intelligence is more than that. And we will see. What about the plane? Well, there was 2 crashes of a Boeing plane. I talked with a pilot at Airbus to ask them, how do you adopt AI in your planes? And the answer was, the main things are automatism. It's engineers that build things. And we leave only AI in some specific cases, like when 2 planes are faced and to avoid them crashing, because you don't here, automatism can't do anything, and you have to learn how to make this avoiding. So less AI in Boeing. But in your smartphone, you have lots of AIs. Many, many, many AIs. And this is, if you go on the ASIAM Turing website for the award given to Yann Lequin and companies, you will see this sentence: anyone who has a smartphone in their pocket can tangibly experience advances in natural language processing and computer vision, and that were not possible just 10 years ago. And you have many, many applications with AI in your phone. So this is where AI is, really. Some history. All begins in 1956 at Dartmouth, here in the USA, with a meeting organized by some references in the AI world. It was the beginning of IT. Many things were in effervescence. There were cognitive scientists, there were information people, there were many, many people who want to build something, a new science, to deal with these problematics. And so Minsky wrote a letter to the Rockefeller Foundation to ask money for a summer holiday, a summer work, who will allow scientific to come and work for defining this science. And to proceed on the basis of the conjecture that every aspect of learning or any other feature of intelligence can be a principle, of intelligence can in principle be so precisely described that a machine can be made to simulate it. So this is AI. The foundation of AI is to decompose the human way of doing things and to understand them, to allow machine to simulate it. And now we are in the other way. We want to take machines to simulate humans things. And who were these people? Well, they are well known now. You are ICM Turing Awards, you have Nobel Prize, a good group of persons. Alan Turing was dead and von Neumann was ill at that moment. So if we go through a brief history, Turing test, AI birth, then the perceptron in order to separate classes. We are in a context of Cold War, so IT is important. In '69, Minsky article stopped the advances, and well, the IT orients to expert systems. So the perceptron is let. And you have ELIZA, you can find online if you want to talk with the machine, ELIZA, to see how it was. And then we arrived in the winter of AI. Winter of AI, why? Because many money was given to scientists, but no results. What about recognition of human speech? What about recognition of handwritten letters? What about automatic for proving theorems? And so on, and so on, and so on. So they decide to allow this money only for military, for defense. In the US, for example, they stopped. And, well, so things go on. In Brittany, in Great Britain, it was in United Kingdom, it was interesting. You can find on the internet the first emission on TV, controversy, where Minsky talked to Sir Lightfoot in order to, well, Sir Lighthill was sent to stop, to make a reflection about the use of money in IT. And so it's a debate for everyone to explain what is AI. And what he says is very interesting and can help us reasoning about today. He said AI is a mirage. He make a comparison, a distinction between automation and robots. In one case, there are engineers who concept, who make a reflection about things. And on the other side, there are machines evolving like agents, robots. He told to the scientific that computers have been oversold, that they put money on an entertainment industry, and he pointed the responsibility of the scientific community about all these derives. It was also gasoline problem, 1970s. And then, due to loss of power and due to loss of well, it was difficult to explain rules to computers. The rule-based expert system were abandoned, or it's better to say that they were not standalone, but they are still in IT machines like in SAP or so on. So we did not spoke about expert system since like that. It has a bad reputation. Then arrived neural networks, Bayesian networks, and all these needs data, and arrived the World Wide Web. World Wide Web, in the 90s, people rename artificial intelligence in advanced computing or things like that to be more approved. You can still find this today. Then Deep Blue, then the area of robots, the smartphone arrived, there were the 9/11, and while IT and artificial intelligence grows and grows and grows. It's a subject for which we are all concerned, and this kind of article this kind of paper can help us consider what is our relationship to data, what is our relationship to computing. We'd like to get away from having an enormous amount of data to train neural networks and get away with using fewer labels to train models. So, how I consider AI? For me, AI means augmented intelligence, not in the sense of transhumanism, but in the sense that it questions our relationship to IT, to data. All these things are here to help me making decisions. This is my approach as a statistician. And for me, a machinery to help decision makers should be like mind mapping. Everybody do mind mapping now. My children at school learn mind mapping. You don't have to read a book, just to draw. And if you draw, you have something that everybody can understand. You don't need a master degree in IT or in else. And with this tool, you should be able to think, and you should be able to share it with people. And as you can imagine, Bayesian networks are the best, for me, the best tool to do that. So, going along this journey, an adaptation from Shakespeare to data or not to data. Well, I often show this graph to realize what is artificial intelligence, what is machine learning, and so on. So machine learning is a subset of artificial intelligence. Inside this, there is data science. Well, sometimes people talk about data mining, other times big data. Well, it's a melting pot of many things, but you can see in Wikipedia that data science will try to unify statistics, data analysis, machine learning, and their related methods. So we are in data in order to understand. Words that you can see are algorithms. In algorithms, I put computers, information systems, and so on. There is statistics, mathematics, physics, and so on. And the new science of causal inference, and I put cognitive science there. How do this develop? Thanks to processes, thanks to the web, thanks to machines like smartphones, and thanks to sensors, IoTs. All these need more and more amount of data, as we are told. And this induces questions about security, questions about the origins, the fiability of these data, of these programs, of these algorithms, and question about decision. You can see data-driven decision. Well, it's a good term, but misunderstood. Data does not drive your decision. It's you who drive your decision. Data is an help to drive your decisions. And I put BI because I worked in it, and you have BI in your companies. BI is ETL, extract, transform, and load data on your computers, all the machineries that will help you having data on time. There are things that we must understand when dealing with data. The GIGO principle. Who doesn't know this principle? Oh, garbage in, garbage out. In French, merde in, merde out. In French, we like merde. Yeah. So what is it? But like this. You talk to another people, who talk to another people, who talk to another people. And at the end, why do you expect something true? So there is many work in organizations to have good data for the decision makers. It's not because you put monies on servers, on IT, that you will have good data. No. You must understand how your organization works first. And if we talk about machine learning, they learn from data. So it will be as good as the data are. And you must understand your data. And the dangers we have, inconsistency, insights, inaccurate, loss of trust of the users, and then your AI results will become stale. People must be confident with what you give them. Another thing you hear is big data. There is 4 of these, well, or 5 or 3, I don't know. I always add one. I add a vacuum term. Why vacuum? Because when you deal with data, you know that the more you have data, the more vacuum you have in space. Let's have this example. If I pass my finger through the lines, through the balls here, well, I will touch the one you think, if I ask you to think of a ball. If we put it in a 2-dimension space, it will take me more time to pass my finger on the ball you think about. And in a 3-dimension space, it will be more difficult. And this is what we call the curse of dimensionality. It's not because you have more and more variables that your results will be good. The more variables you add, the more space, the more vacuum you add in the space. And all the data scientists' work is to reduce the space. So if you go to 3 dimensions to 1, you will lose information. Data that are in proximity in a 3D space should be very far each from other in a projection space. And the reverse is true. Another question is all focus on data, database. And I take the visuals of Young last year to explain this. It's very simple. If you focus on data, you can see very strange things sometimes. And you can have accurate model of inaccurate one, too many, not sufficient data. Well, it depends. Another thing is that data is dumb. There is no intelligence in data. Every people is surprised when I tell this. Well, there is no intelligence in data. And if you see this graphic from Spurious Correlations of Tyler Wegen, you can see, well, what's the link between the age of Miss America and the murders by steam, hot vapors, and hot objects. Where is the intelligence in this data? Well, you show this to people, oh yeah, there is no intelligence, and then they go back and they pursue their activities. And for a statistician, wow, it's fantastic. We have a correlation of 87. Wow. Well, this is interesting because if you don't see the curves with a correlation like this, you are very happy. So this shows us the interest of having a way to see data. And another thing, big data is not a standard. You can see in this example, if you are asked to guess what colors, what the colors of the balls are in the box. Well, if you begin, you have 3 red balls, you guess that all the box is made of red balls. When one white ball is taken, well, you say there are white and red balls. You don't imagine there will be a yellow ball or anything else. You don't need to have hundreds of balls to guess what there is in this box. And when you show to children, to a baby, when you do this experience and you open the box, babies are surprised with the unexpected one. How do you measure it? Well, by the time the baby takes to look at the box. So we are born with the ability to guess what is true, well, what is strange. Another thing is understanding science. It's very, very difficult because science is not the truth. Science works with models. And what is a model? A representation of some aspects of reality. It's not reality. And this tableau of Magritte is this one. Ceci n'est pas une pipe. This is not a pipe. True or not true? Well, it's a pipe. For somebody who never saw a pipe, yes, it's a pipe. But for smokers who wants to smoke and who doesn't find his pipe, it's not a pipe. And as we know, all models are wrong, but some as useful, and all the work of science is to find useful models, the most useful ones. And what could be useful one day might not be useful the other day. And you can, for example, a very difficult field of science, quantum physics, where you can hear things, strange things, and things changing at a very high speed. And people are afraid with these not stable things. So now let's entering AI through Bayesian networks. Well, I discovered Bayesian networks on the internet, like with things like that. So it allows understanding, it's good for research, for reasoning, for analytic modeling. I saw this sentence and I went to the web. I looked some seminars done by Stefan. And as you see, there are many slides of Bayesian in my presentations. Well, when you read this, you must stop and think, okay, Bayesian networks are as important to AI and machine learning as Boolean circuits are to computer science. And when I read this, I talked to people doing AI, data scientists. No, we don't know about Bayesian networks. Oh, yes, PAM. Yeah, well, it's difficult. We don't use this. We are in machine learning. Do you know many programmers or developers who don't know what a Boolean circuit is? So, Bayesian networks, well, Jude Apple is not a businessman. He would have take the name of brain, network, computer, or quantum, etc. It's very difficult to pronounce. When I talk to this, when I tell these words to people, we have 1 or 2 minutes about the pronunciation. Bayesian noir, Bayesian, how do you pronounce? What is it? Well, it's a network because he's a computer scientist first, and Bayesian because the construction is based on the formula of the Bayes rule. And when you enter the field of Bayesian networks, Bayesian Lab is very, very useful. This graphic helps you to understand what is the power of this technology. With data or without data, only expert knowledge, you put it in the machine and you have a decision support. And when you have this decision support, well, you can put it again in the machine and improve your reasoning. And it's very useful to understand also, as a statistician, that correlation does not equal causation. Everybody knows this, but forgot the last of the sentences, the last of the sentence for observational data. If correlation was not equal to causation, we would not have medicine, because all the control experiments are based on correlation, but on the gold standard. So you can do causation and you can do association. When you entered Bayesian Lab world, you have Stefan, the guest star. Very, very useful seminars, very useful web now. And Stefan, I noticed that my favorite logos disappeared. Hello, my name is Stefan Conradi. Well, it looked like you killed him with arrows at the beginning of the year. In February, it was still here, and then, no, disappeared. What happened? Oh, please, back. So he's a genius on the web for Bayesian networks. Any question, you can ask him. If you want to go on learnings, you have also Lionel with the courses too. That's not enough, as Jackie said this morning. And you can it's dense, but you can enter the scientific aspects of AI there. You have also the book we spoke about, available on the web. And the documentation, well, I put this photo because in the plane I was near a woman, an old woman who didn't find her bag. And so she missed our plane. And she was complaining because it's not AI, it's an information system, because she's an old resident in America. And on her paper, she has not an end date. And the machine, when she connected to enter her figures on the web, the machine needs an end date. So it was not possible for her to complete. And this takes 1 hour at the airport to do that. So AI and IT is not involved in this problem. It's ingenious conception. Bayesian, it's also an expert system for troubleshooting. BEST, I don't know if you are aware of that. It's a packaging for troubleshooting. I also had the opportunity to have a cyber attack graph done by Michel. So with BRICS. So BRICS is Bayesian modeling object. So you have the modelization at your left, and then you deploy it when you have many, many nodes. So artificial intelligence is artificial. With Bayesian networks, it's visual. You can understand things. You don't have a master degree to look what is in proximity, what is important or not. You can see if your intuition is true or it fails or must be revised. You have beliefs. Machine learning is searching, and with graphs, you understand it. With an equation, well, how to explain, it's complicated. I have 3 variables, and with 3 variables, there are 25 possibilities to find it. No, with a network, it's easy. So machine learning is finding a model in a search space, and it's hard. You have unsupervised learning. So you enter in theory a little more, but not so difficult. With minimum descriptive length, Lionel talked about this morning. You can compare models with, well, you put an arc and you take it off and you see if the model is better or not. A wonderful tool is Markov blanket. I won't stay on this slide. Lionel spoke about this morning. When you talk of machine learning, of course, there are neural networks. And deep learning is very important now. Deep neural networks. They are in computer vision, speech recognition, natural language understanding. On your smartphone, you have it. And it will be on device on the smartphone next. Well, it begins 2 years ago with iPhone and Huawei. And before meeting Lionel, I was at a conference of Stéphane Mallat, who is now responsible of the data science chair at Collège de France. And he explained this field of research. And this video is available on the internet. And the question is, why does it work so well? In the right, you have a classifier. So the X are the photos best good classified. You add noise, chosen noise, and at the end, they are not well classified. For us human, it's the same. There are the same photos. For a computer, it's not. They are classified as ostrich. All. And the question is that, and for science it's complicated, trial and error testing cannot guarantee reliability. This is why when autonomous cars begins, they are on straightforward roads. You do not leave them in a town. You have to test all the parameters before let autonomous cars be alone. And you have things like that you put some sticks on a stop, and the recognition vision said, well, it's speed limit 45. Go on. So when you hear that, you understand that people are afraid about artificial intelligence. I will hack your brain now. I did this the first time for students, for high school students. I did not know how to explain them how machine learning works, and I found this video and it's a very, very good video to understand this. So I hope the sound is okay.
To test just how much attention the attention-stealing design of the new Skoda Fabia actually steals, we left one parked on this ordinary road in West London. We wanted to see if its sharp crystalline shapes, bold lines and lower, wider profile would attract the desired level of attention. Will the 17-inch black alloy wheels stop passers-by in their tracks? Will the angular headlights attract the attention of other road users? Will a crowd gather to check out its fresh, sporty look? Well, not quite. But did the attention-stealing design distract you from noticing that the entire street has been changing right before your very eyes? Don't believe us? Have another look. Did you spot the van changing to a taxi? How about the scooter changing to a pair of bicycles? Or the lady holding a kid? Let alone the fact that the entire street is now completely different. Didn't think so. So there we have it. Proof that the new Skoda Fabia is truly attention-stealing.
Do you understand the relationship with machine learning? You focus on the car. You didn't take care of anything around. And this is what machine learning do. You give him data, you give it data, it takes the data. Only the data. What about other things?
To test.
Let's enter intelligence now, artificial intelligence, where we will do this with Bayesian networks, of course. And I take this example in the good book we were offered last year. Thank you, Stefan. And I read the book, and I decided, I think it's page 30, or at the beginning of the book, Jude Appel explained what conditional probability is, and so on. So I say, I will put it in Bayesian Lab for my students. So 2/3 of customers order tea, half of the tea drinkers order cake. What is a fraction of the clientele that order both tea and cake? Well, I think you all find. You do the formula, half of 2/3, it's okay. Then Pearl said, to explain this, we will explain this with data. So he proposes a table with 12 data, with 12 lines. And he said, if you have 2/3 of person who order tea, it's in orange. If you have half of this person who order cake, you find the 1/3 response. And he asks the other question. If now somebody entered the tea house and ordered cake, what is the probability that he will order tea? Was the response? The brain is hot at that moment. Let's go on. He gives the result. The result is 4/5, and he explained how he did this calculus. So I wanted to put it in Bayesian Lab to make this example. The problem is when I want to put figures in the conditional probability table. Why? Because to solve this problem, the first question, you didn't need to know the red box for cake. So you enter the figure, and then you are blocked. You say, well, what figures can I put in that? And you see that there is not only one table of possibility, but there are many possibilities. You can put yes or no. You have four possibilities for yes or no in the table. So in this context, you can, and this makes me really understanding and explaining why it is difficult to find the famous part of the formula. It is not easy to have because we have not all the information. You have to play with your beliefs to complete the table or to choose something. So if you want to, this is a way I found interesting to understand the base formula. You really need the two priors to be able to go further with the problem. So you can understand also what likelihood means. Well, when you are in T world, the probability of cake is different than when you are in the whole world. So it's a likelihood for T of C. The other step in intelligence deals with ladder and rules in reference of the ladder of causation of Pearl. Another way I represent the example of the officer and the fireman for an article I made to explain what Bayesian network is. What is your approach to solve a problem? Well, pure machine learning, or it could be causal graphs. Data is not necessary, and the causal graph is data generative. So I used first a causal graph to build the data for the problem for the machine learning, to explain what machine learning gives, and then I present the whole details of the situation. So you have a judge who pronounces a sentence if a guy will be fired or not, and this is a story. So the first question you can have, what purpose is if it's association or correlation? You want to answer questions like what are the relationships between the model variables? How to quantify these relationships? Where if you launch a machine learning, you have this. But you have the causal model in mind. It is this one, and you can see the difference between the two. And the question is, looking at this graph, you can answer the question when the soldier 1 fires, what can be deduced from the soldier 2? Well, both soldiers are obedient to the officer. So if S1 is true, well, S2 is true also. No data to do that. With this causal model, you can go further. You can go into intervention. Intervention is a word of action. Make an event happen. So if S1 decides to shoot without any order, if he decides, what could be said about S2? Well, on the network, we broke the arrow between officer and S1, and then we think, well, what will happen? likely S2 is fails. Because if he did it by his own motion, we suppose that, well, his own motion is not the motion of the officer. And the other one is counterfactual. You climb a step of the ladder, and the question is, well, you have the situation, you have seen the situation, and now you decide to re-invent this reality. And you say, well, what would have happened if S1 had not fired? You want to build the story here. Well, the probability of death is true. If S1 didn't fire, we suppose that S2 is obedient, so he didn't fire. No? Yes?
He fired.
Yeah, he fired. Why?
It's independent.
Yeah. Okay. But without
He's trying to shoot.
sorry?
His orders to shoot.
Yeah. So you don't need mathematics to understand this. You heard that what I said was not true, because I said the death of the prisoner was false. So you don't need any high evaluated science to understand causal things. You need work. And so, pure machine learning, well, it will never give you a causal model. It's data searching for relationships with other data. Causal graphs, you don't need data to draw a graph. A children can draw a graph. Mummy first goes to the market and then etc. Anybody could do that. And what is powerful is that you can, through Bayesian networks, implement it in a machine. And the selection of the relationship you want to cut will give intelligence to your machine. And this is the next point. Intelligence is breaking the rules. So this is a cognitive scientist in France I met, and I read his book, is Learn to Resist. And learn to resist is what we talked about thinking fast and slow. Well, he proposes a system 3. And this third system is an inhibition system. This inhibition system allows to make a balance between the heuristic one, with very, very speed, but with no fiability, and with algorithmic one, who we can trust, but who is not speed. And so we are taught when we are young, and some children have difficulties with lecture, because we have to implement a way to think differently. And he explains this by the evolution of our prefrontal cortex, because the first humans didn't need to know if a danger was in profile right or in profile left. It is a dangerous animal. And so the symmetry between letters are very difficult for some people to learn. Building bridges. Well, I will go rapidly through this. I had wanted to present some things about process mining, because it's another way to present data analysis. And I work with someone in France about that. Semantic research it's also something interesting. I work with someone who do semantic analysis for helping people to recruit or to find their vocational guidance. At the end of this presentation, well, what is important is for me to help people understanding where we live. Stefan told about the interest we have in data for explaining the world. But explain the world for myself, well, it's interesting. But explaining to people who need to know this, to help them make better decisions, is important. A car is not autonomous and will never be autonomous. Okay, I won't explain, but if you want, we can talk about it. You don't have any conversation with these devices. And they can hear you before you talk. People are surprised. Wow, they hear me before I talk. Yeah, of course they hear you before you talk, because when you say, OK, Google, he hears that you say, OK, Google, so he hears before. And what interests him is what you said before you pass a command. You order something. Well, I want to order a pizza. Well, what's interesting before is, hello, I'm tired tonight. Do you know a pizzeria around, etc. And then the OK Google, well, it's a machinery, but what's interesting is before. There is sustainable questions. I explain to my children, when you watch a video on YouTube, you imagine that there is 1,500 people at the same time watching the same video. This is your energetic consumption. And the end, who am I really? Well, we lived in a world of shadows, and I appreciate this art because it's very interesting. You have something that is inconsistent. You see pieces of woods, well, and with a good orientation of light, you can discover something interesting. But this is not the truth. This is a vision of the truth. The shadow you see is not a man. It is pieces of woods through lights. And when we are working with data, this is our job. We can show things, but we must be aware that, well, reality is perhaps different. Thank you.